What's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Madam Web again because sadly it's one of the few things that I have to talk about right now. But anyways, the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, the Spunsy for funsies, is kind of dying, right? And to be fair, was it ever really living? Who's to say? The first Venom movie was all right, and then it hasn't produced a single good movie since then. But a lot of people are kind of talking about the speculation that Sony is purposely kind of like creating these movies to kind of like draw away from the superhero fatigue or whatever, and to purposely make it seem like superhero movies are dying. And then another thing is a lot of people are giving Sony a lot of crap because they think that they are luring actors in for pretending like they are the MCU, but they're not. And I think that is really interesting, and it's stuff to talk about. But that's not what we're going to be talking about in this video. So psych, did I subvert your expectations? I hope so. I was trying to pull an Iron Man 3 on you guys. But that being said, what are we going to be talking about in this video? We are going to be talking about movies that Sony should have made instead of Madam Web. So, to dive right into it, I am not going to include any Spider-Man movies because I feel like that would be pretty obvious. If you want to make a Spider-Man adjacent film that would be successful, why don't you use Spider-Man? Obviously, that doesn't seem to be what Sony's going for. They want to do Sinister Six. They are hell-bent on using the villains. So I'm going to be pitching movies for Spider-Man villains that I think would have been significantly better than Madam Web. And we're just going to dive right into this. The first half of this video, actually, I'm going to start off by talking about projects that are coming up and how I thought that they were secret titles for other things and how I was really excited. And then I realized they probably are not, and Sony is really just stupid and picking the most niche characters to make their movies about. So, the first one I want to talk about, obviously, Mucho Libre. For people who do not know about this, this was a project, I don't know if it's still in development, but it was supposed to originally have Bad Bunny in it, and it was supposed to be based off of a Spider-Man comic character who literally appeared in, I believe, one single comic run ever, and it was a little-known Spider-Man villain who was kind of like a Mexican wrestler, and he was pretty cool. But the big thing is, like I said, he doesn't have a lot of source material. It would be pretty much a completely new character, and it would pretty much have nothing to do with Spider-Man, which obviously that's what Sony's going for. So that's definitely something that they're probably looking towards. But I want to talk about the movie that I thought this was a secret title for, because it happens in Hollywood all the time where they have like secret titles for projects because they don't want it to get out what the movie that they're making is. Famously, Marvel has done this before. Captain America 3 was originally called Captain America Serpent Society instead of Captain America Civil War. And then obviously they flipped the switch on that and then made it Captain America Civil War. But this happens a lot, right? They have these movies. They're not sure if it's going to get into production, and they don't want to give fans a bunch of false hope if it does end up happening out. So they'll pick random stage names for the movies or whatever in advance. And one of the popular ones for this recently was James Wan had a DC movie called The Trench, which was going to be about the underwater world in Aquaman, where he dives really far into the deeps or whatever. And there's like this weird kind of like special side of the ocean that we never see. And a lot of people thought, okay, this is weird. It's going to be like a DC adjacent like horror movie about the depths of the ocean and stuff like that. But it was later revealed that that movie was going to be a Black Manta movie, right? And that would have been really cool. We would have loved that. But that wasn't it. And personally, when I heard about this Mucho Libre movie, I had thought, similarly to a couple of other people who I've had internet conversations with about this, that it was a cover-up for a famous, high-profile Hispanic superhero that Sony technically owns the rights to, Spider-Man 2099. I think that Miguel O'Hara is an incredibly cool character. I think that what they're doing with him in Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, whatnot, it works. It's a very interesting taking of the character. But that being said, it would be so fun to have any movie that takes place in 2099 and actually take advantage of that world, because the cyberpunk aesthetic is really, really interesting. It could be like a super techno movie. It could have a lot of really cool It could have a lot of really cool CGI, and I think that the setting of it would just be fantastic. You could play around with a lot of cool lighting designs. You could use a lot of cooler, updated music, and I feel like it could feel kind of like a Tron Legacy type movie. It can feel kind of similar to like old school 80s action movies, kind of like a RoboCop type. And I feel like it would be a really, really fun movie to make. But that being said, apparently it was actually just going to be Mucho Libre. There was nothing exciting at the end of that tunnel. I thought that it was going to be like something really, really cool, but it wasn't. And that's very disappointing. And now the other upcoming project that we were talking about, that this one has actually been rumored a lot with people who are like scoopers in Hollywood. So there's actually a chance that this was actually what this movie was going to be. And it has been canceled. They're not doing any production for it. It's no longer going to be a developed movie. They're not doing anything with it. But there was a little project by the name of the Hypno Hustler, and the only person who was really attached to the project was Donald Glover. I think that he was going to be the lead actor in it. And Sony didn't really say much about what this movie was supposed to be. Once again, it was just a random, obscure Spider-Man character who not a lot of people have ever heard of. Even like diehard comic fans were like, who the hell is Hypno Hustler? And recently in interviews, Donald Glover has kind of talked about, his connection to the Spider-Verse and how he feels about some of the characters and stuff like that. And he kind of alluded to the fact that they were going to make a live-action Prowler movie. And we have never heard anything about this as just casual fans. And I think that what was happening here was the Hypno Hustler title was actually a fake title for a Prowler movie that was going to be starring Donald Glover. And it could have been really cool, but I don't think that Sony is wanting to make movies that will actually make them money. So it definitely seems like something they're not going to do. But that being said, I'm going to pitch some movies that I think they totally should do now. Alrighty, so the first one, this one is very heavily based off of just, in my opinion, one of the coolest and most underrated superhero movies of all time. The first Ant-Man movie. I've seen a lot of videos recently talking about how superhero movies all feel like they're all the same genre, and a lot of times superhero movies get pictured as genres. Like if you're looking for a type of movie to watch, I'm looking for a superhero movie. All superhero movies are relatively the same. There's very few that feel different, like Logan, kind of a Western in a sense. There's some that deal with like time travel elements that can kind of feel more like a sci-fi adventure. But for the most part, most superhero movies are just action comedies, and it's really disappointing that it's kind of became a genre. Like superhero movies is just one type of movie, and it's not branching out more because in the comics, all of these characters have very different styles. They have very different emotions, and it's really a disservice to just continue making superhero movies that are just whippy and funny and is just an action comedy. So I kind of wanted to take it back to the Ant-Man movie, which was a heist film. I feel like the superhero heist works relatively well. It puts a smaller scale threat that the person will have to face. And something that I like particularly about a heist film is you can take one of these Spider-Man villains, people who are supposed to be evil, and you can actually make them a bad guy without necessarily making them the antagonist of a movie. So my pitch for this was just going to be a Vulture standalone movie. It could be very similar to his arc in Spider-Man Homecoming, where he's just been fucked over by the system and now he's stealing technology from these big tech corporations. Obviously, they can't do Stark Technologies, but they could definitely do Oscorp. And I think it would be a very, very interesting movie. And if they were to still, for whatever reason, be planning on making a Sinister Six movie, I think that it could be an interesting way to tie a Vulture character into the Oscorp side of things and introduce him to Norman Osborn, introduce him to the Lizard, introduce him to all the characters who famously work at Oscorp. And I just think it would be a really interesting movie to see the Vulture flying around, breaking into planes, stealing really cool high-tech weapons and stuff like that. And I think it would be really, really interesting. I think another thing is it could show kind of the street-level threats of New York. And something specifically that I think would be epic about it is it could be a pair-up movie with some other superheroes that are not superheroes, super villains who are known for stealing things. Obviously, the most famous Spider-Man villain that is a thief is Black Cat, and she would not work in this movie at all. But I feel like a movie with the Vulture teaming up with Prowler to steal some things would be really, really cool, and I would love it. I think it would be a really, really epic movie. And if Sony was to do it right and they were to produce somebody, if they were to get somebody like Edgar Wright or somebody who is good with making heist films to do it, it would be fantastic. Personally, my choice, I think they should get David Ayer. David Ayer just did The Beekeeper. I love The Beekeeper. I thought it was some great action. And he got fricked over by DC, so I think that him coming over to Marvel would totally be something that could happen, and he would absolutely kill it with this movie. Okay, now this next one, this is a character who diehard Spider-Man fans have been wanting to see on the big screen for so long. It is insane to me that we have 14 Spider-Man or Spider-Man adjacent films that have came out in theaters, and we have yet to see one of his most iconic villains portrayed at all. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about Big Wheel. Big Wheel is insanely cool, and for people who right now are like, what the hell is he talking about? Why is he like so serious about this? I am serious about this. A Big Wheel movie would be insanely cool, and I think something that they should do with it is kind of give him like the Spot treatment. If you guys saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, they picked a lesser-known Spider-Man villain, and they kind of gave him a backstory that works for that film, completely changes stuff from the comics. It doesn't matter because you are adapting it, and it doesn't need to be perfect. And Big Wheel could be something similar to that. I would love to see a Big Wheel movie that is similar to the first Fast and Furious movie, that's similar to the Tokyo Drift movies, where he's just a dangerous little street racer, and then something happens and he becomes like a getaway driver for some like big heist or something that's happening. You see, I'm once again coming back to the heist. In my opinion, Sony should have been making all of their little superhero villain movies heist films, because they're all evil. If you want them to do evil things without necessarily being evil, that's how you do it right there. I mean, they don't have to kill anybody for the heist. They can just show off their cool power sets. They can show off their cool costumes. In Big Wheel's case, you can show off his epic car. I would love this. I think it would be great. I think that it could totally be a campy movie if they wanted it to be a campy movie, or it could be completely serious. And I think either way would work. But that being said, if Kigpin could get his own show over on the DC animated side of things, we should be able to get a Big Wheel movie. Give me Big Wheel, please. Okay, but now I'm just going to kind of rattle off a couple of different ones that don't really necessarily have any actual like chance of ever being made, but they're just things that I think would be really interesting. I would love to see a political thriller that is Kingpin running for mayor against Tombstone, and I think that it would be a really interesting movie. These are like more like things that I would expect from like a What If cartoon or something like that, but Tombstone facing off against Kingpin would be a really cool movie. If they were to ever make a Tombstone movie, I would watch the hell out of that. They could include characters like Hammerhead, who, once again, very little representation in movies, and it's a shame because he's a pretty cool villain, and I really like him. But overall, I just think that this would be really interesting. Kind of show the criminal underworld of New York again, because in my opinion, that's one of the things that they have like the strongest like features for, and they're not doing anything with it. They're kind of going globetrotting. Every single one of their movies ends with somebody having to go to some exotic forest because somebody is doing research on spiders or bats, and now all of a sudden they have superpowers. And honestly, I think it would be a lot more interesting if they focused on New York. Like, Spider-Man is a straight-on New York character. He is from New York. He's always from New York. And the New York side of his story is a very interesting one. And I think it'd be really interesting to show some of the smaller street-level things in New York, especially since one thing about Sony that they kind of struggle with in comparison to DC and the big Marvel projects is they don't have a big budget. You know what you can make with a relatively small budget? Pretty cool street level fights. Get people who actually know how to do fight choreography and make like scenes like the Daredevil fight scene and stuff like that, and just make it a nice little grounded story. And I don't understand why Sony keeps trying to go big or go home with some of these movies where it doesn't need to be. Like, honestly, if Madam Web, never mind, I was trying to say something you could do to make Madam Web a better movie, but it is so terrible that like I think you'd have to completely like undo everything, start from scratch, and just try again. But that being said, Madam Web is just not great. Morbius, also not great. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, also not great. Man, why is the Spunksy still a thing? They have had, like, oh wait, that's right, the Venom movies are making money. I forgot the Venom movies are making money. I was like, they've had 4 flops. They haven't. They're just not critically acclaimed movies, which doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, those are some of my big pitches. Something else that I would totally love to see. Sony has the rights to 400 something characters, and it is very obvious that they are just shoving as much characters into each of their movies as they can so that they continue to keep the rights for those characters. And if you're going to do that, and you're just going to shamelessly plug the Spider-Woman into your Madam Web movie so that Marvel can't use the Spider-Woman characters because you technically used them, I think that you might as well just make like a Street Fighter type movie. Make it where they're all, for whatever reason, just in some like giant fight club. It could be something like in Shang-Chi, how they have that little like battle den or whatever it's called. I don't know why I just called it battle den, but you know, the like 10 Rings little fight club that they do in Madripoor. That's pretty damn cool. I don't think that's in Madripoor. That doesn't take place in Madripoor. We're going to pretend that I didn't just say Madripoor because that's the only city that I can think of when I think about underground crime in Marvel. But yeah, that being said, that was pretty much everything I had to say. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave this video here. You guys are amazing. I love and appreciate you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow. Back at it again, but that's a relevant flow. So smooth, they calling me Mr. Elegant. Like an elephant, I got a long nose. Like a president, I've got a few hoes. Swift with a stutter, I'm smooth like butter. Don't see it coming when I slip undercover. Like a big dog, but I don't bite. I'm still a big broad, I'd win that fight. Come match you and I knock out your lights.